Hey everyone, welcome to this show, Learn the Tech, show number 5. And this is February 16th, 2016. Learn the Tech is a show where you choose the subject and we explain it for an hour. So if you've got an idea about a show, helpwithyourcomputers@gmail.com or comment below the video and let me know what would you like me to talk about in a future Learn the Tech show. We already have a few subjects. A lot of people are helping out and giving out subjects. It's really cool. So in Learn the Tech today, we're talking about tablets and e-readers. And we'll look at the different tablets. Of course, we're not going to look at everything on the market, but we're going to look at what the major tablets are, what operating systems they have, why some people choose one over the other, why some people like e-readers, what's an e-reader, and why would somebody choose something like an e-reader when a tablet does so much more. You'll see that there's all sorts of good and bad about each operating system and each type of device. I'm located in Montreal, Quebec, Canada, and this is, of course, the show where we learn something about technology. So let's start by talking about tablets. They've been around for many years now. We can say that pretty much the first tablet that really started all is the iPad. Before the iPad, we weren't really talking about tablets, but the funny thing is, although everybody thinks the iPad is the first tablet ever, the iPad is far from being the first tablet ever. It's just that the iPad is the first device that got on the market, and thanks to Apple's extraordinary way of selling things and being able to market stuff, they've been able to pull it off. And it's like, hey, here's a nice tablet that everybody can use. But Microsoft had tablets. A lot of companies put up tablets that weren't really selling, basically. And they've become popular. There's kind of a stagnant thing, though, that's happening. Sales of tablets in the past 2 years have been gradually either tapering off or staying pretty much the same level. And you might wonder why. Why do tablets suddenly, they went off to a great start with the iPad. Why would tablets sell less now than they did before? And it has to do with the way they were designed. And we're going to talk a little bit about that and the different designs and the different things of each tablet. But for a lot of reasons, many tablets weren't designed to do and replace a computer. And that's why a lot of the sales have been kind of stagnating, because okay, it doesn't do all I want. And you got competition with cell phones. And if we think about smartphones now having screens of 5 and 6 inches, they're getting close to a tablet size almost. So some people are just using their phones to do stuff. So all sorts of tablets, all sorts of shapes and sizes. We're examining exactly, all of that in here. So the first thing, of course, is we're going to start with the most popular tablet on the market, the iPads. iPads are made by Apple. And when they were released the first time, they became a huge hit. And I mean a huge hit. iPads were driving sales with iPhones. And it was like there was no end. And we were wondering, oh, well, everybody now will just jump on it, get an iPad, and no PC is going to be sold anymore. But there's the good and the bad on the iPad. So the good sides to the iPads were that they are, and I have to say that if you are on something that you never used before and you jump and you get an iPad, they were designed to be as easy to use as possible. And Apple really, really worked hard to have the operating system, which is iOS. iOS is the operating system for iPads. They're at version 9 right now. It's the same operating system pretty much that you have on a phone. So if you got an iPhone, well, you've got a device, an iOS device. So for example, if we look at my iPhone here, well, my iPhone, this iPhone is an iOS device. It has and shares the same capabilities as the iPads. And one of the reasons the iPads got popular is that linked with your iPhone, basically things sync together. And the iPhone being a pretty good seller for Apple, a lot of people said, well, I know my iPhone works. I'll know how the iPad works also. They're generally fast. They're generally very reliable. They have an operating system that usually works really well. It doesn't mean there's no glitches, okay? But the iPads come in many shapes and sizes. So you've got the iPad mini, iPad Air, and the regular iPad. And now there's even the iPad Pro, which is a huge iPad, basically. And the difference between all of those is just size and basically, thickness and how much they weigh. A lot of people love smaller iPads because they don't weigh a lot. They're easy to bring everywhere, and they have different screen sizes, so you can check them out. They are a little expensive. iPads for tablets are probably on the high range of price. And I can tell you one thing, an iPad Pro is more expensive than a PC. So it's something to think about. If you're going to spend more than you would spend for a PC, but just for a tablet, that's not totally doing what a PC does. There are limits to what these devices do, but it depends on what you want to do with them. The iPads have also something that's good and bad. The operating system in an iPad is a closed system. It's run, and it is really the only way to get software out of it is through the App Store, the Apple App Store. Because of that, and because the fact that the App Store is a place where Apple really checks everything that's coming out of it, it means that your iPad, in general, is probably one of the safest devices that you can bring with you that connects to the web. iPads come in black and white. They are, for a lot of people, beautiful objects. And I've got an iPad too, and I must say that I do enjoy my iPad. It is a nice device, and it's fun to use. But there are things that people don't like with devices like an iPad. And we'll talk a little more about that when we get to e-readers, because iPads can be used for gaming, can be used for, to some extent, work. But because of the lack of any storage, you can't put a USB key on this. You cannot put a card of some sort to store stuff and bring it to another computer. It limits some of the usability of the iPad. Okay, you have cloud services, so you can install, for example, you got a PC. You can install an app for OneDrive here and send the stuff to OneDrive and share it with your PC. The thing is, there are some productivity software here that works, like Microsoft Office, but these don't come with a keyboard, and the on-screen keyboard is not necessarily the best thing in the world to work with. So you get to a point where you notice, okay, well, if I add Office to this, and now I have to buy a Bluetooth keyboard that works with this, and now I'm over $1,000 just to get a tablet with a keyboard, might as well buy a PC. So part of the problem is here. But they are reliable devices, usually work very well. Screens are very nice, with the Retina screen. The screen is beautiful, and the iPads are probably still now the king of tablets. Here with my own clients, if I look at the number of people that have tablets, I'd say that the iPad wins. Most of my clients were using iPads, not other types of devices. Of course, other devices are available also. So you got to think about the iPad as being a closed system. You got to think that you are totally controlled by Apple environment. The App Store is probably one of the, if not the richest app store of all. So the iPad wins in the number of apps. What are apps? That's what's running on your tablet. An app is basically a program, but it's easy to install through the App Store. It's just the press of a key. You go there, you take the app that you want, it just installs. It's not complicated. It's pretty secure. Lots of apps are free, lots of games are free. And the choice in the App Store is probably the biggest choice of any tablet out there. So that makes the iPad a very, very good choice when somebody starts thinking about, should I buy a tablet PC? What's also amazing on the iPad, battery life. Of all the tablets, the iPad win probably on every device on battery. iPads 10, 12, 14, 15 hours, and they optimize it so well that you get pretty much a full day's use on an iPad, even if you use it a lot. And that's a problem on other devices, getting to have a battery life that would be equal to the iPad. So there's lots of positive points about iPads, and we have to think about that. And if I buy a tablet, if I put $500 or $600 or $700 on a tablet, my choice probably will go towards an iPad, personally. But I must say that there's another type of system that's pretty popular also in the market for tablets. And actually, it's the number one for phones, because iPhones share the same type of environment, but iPhones are not the best sellers in the world. Android phones are the number one in the world. iPads are probably the number one in the world for tablets. Apart from that, there's specifications, the processors they put in here, everything makes the iPad always work pretty fast. It does always the job you want at a very good pace, at a very fast pace. Crashes, of course it does crash. The iPad crashes like the iPhone crashes, but it doesn't happen very often, I have to say. So that's the first choice you might run into. Second choice, an Android tablet. I've got an Android tablet here. It's an old one, but I still enjoy it. Android is probably the second most popular in tablets after the iPad, which is the reverse of the phones. In phones, Android is number one. The iPhones are second. What's interesting in the Android tablets is that because they are made by different manufacturers, because iPads are made by Apple, and only Apple makes iPads. Android, that is an operating system that runs on different tablets by different manufacturers. It means that, first of all, the choice of devices is bigger. You have literally hundreds of designs, sizes, and the processor in there is very diverse, and you get a very wide price range. So for example, if you look at an iPad, which has a minimum price of around $400, you'll get an Android device, and some will sell for as low as $100. Now, that hides a little something that you got to be careful. A lot of the people that I've seen buy Android devices bought them for one simple reason: price. Price is what decided that they're going to buy an Android tablet. And because of that, it means that a lot of them bought crappy tablets, because the problem with Android tablets is that you can buy a crappy tablet. On the iPad, you can't really buy a crappy iPad because they're all powerful and they all work well. Here, you got to be careful. Like a PC. On a PC, you can buy a crappy PC. If you just paid $279 for a PC, you're going to see it's damn slow and it just doesn't work that well. Same thing happens with Android tablets. So you can get Android tablets for as low as, I've seen some on eBay for like $50 US. And of course, you can have Android tablets that will rival the price of iPads, $600, $700, $800, $900. Usually has to do with power. So the price will often show you the power of the tablet because it will run faster. A tablet, an Android tablet that is more expensive will have a faster, more powerful processor, faster graphics processor, and overall system will be better. Quality of construction will be better. Screen resolution will be better. Now, the good point of Android is for somebody that is, like a real tech enthusiast, somebody that likes to play a lot with their stuff. Android is like Windows. It's the Windows of operating systems for mobile, because what's cool here is that you can pretty much tweak the system like you want. You can pretty much do what you want. On an iPad, okay, there's the tech enthusiast that might say, oh, you can jailbreak. Yeah, you can. I've jailbreaked my iPad too, and it's okay, but it's risky and there's always something that could happen. Here you get an environment where you can go and get software anywhere. On the iPad, you get software in the App Store, and that's the only thing you can do. On the Android, you have the Google Play Store. But with the Google Play Store, you also get websites that have games and apps that you can just download the package and just install the package directly into your device. So it's like a Windows operating system where you do pretty much what you want. And that makes the Android tablets attractive for people that want to tweak more, people that want to have more power and more control over what they can do with the device. And one thing that you don't have to worry about on iPads, because if you buy an iPad, a new iPad, you'll always get the latest operating system. On Android, you got to be careful, because price will also bring you another problem: different versions of the operating system. So you can get a tablet for $150, but you suddenly notice it's running KitKat 4.4. Really cool, but we are at version 6 right now, which is Marshmallow. So you got to know that it's basically the same thing as saying, well, I bought a new computer with Windows 7. It was less expensive. It's about the same thing. Now, it's still going to work, but because it's an older operating system, you're going to have the problem of some apps won't work. And these tablets, depending on from where you buy them, are not always easy to upgrade to a later operating system. And that is one of the other problems that happens with Android. You're often stuck with the operating system you got. An iPad will be upgradable for a few years at least. An Android device might be stuck at the operating system you have. So if you got it with KitKat 4.4, you might have to stay there because it might not be upgradable. And because there's a lot of cheap tablets with Android, very often made in a very unique way, we're going to say it like that, Android tablets might not be super fast. Sometimes, especially $100, $150 tablets are often very slow. They're sluggish. When you ask for stuff, it's long. It takes a certain time. And basically, that's the error that everybody does. They will choose such a device because it's inexpensive. But when they use it, everything's slow. I see clients of mine with Android devices. Oh, look, I bought this for $89. Yeah, $89, but it's really slow when you use it. And of course, as a tech guy, you don't say anything. Sometimes clients will tell me, they're going to say, hey, you find my tablet slow? Yeah, it is. But if you buy the correct one, if you buy one that has power and has the latest operating system, at least version 5 or even version 6 Marshmallow, you can have a really good device in a tablet. So, can you do some things on the iPad that you can't do here? Or are there things you can do here that you won't do on the iPad? Technically speaking, if we're talking about apps, the Google Play Store is not very far today of the amount of apps and programs than Apple, which means that pretty much everything you see on Apple Store is available in Android. There are some games and apps that are not, but not that much. I can tell you that not that many apps are missing in the Android store, that's for sure. So basically, you do pretty much the same thing here with the added bonus of an operating system that is fully customizable to your liking. You can change the skin, you can change everything. That device can look pretty much like you want. But it has a problem compared to iOS. So if I told you one of the first things that people like about the iPads is the fact that they're pretty easy to use. The iPads, pretty much everybody that doesn't know much about technology gets an iPad and knows what to do because it was really, really well thought out and because there's a lot of help in the way that you do things. So when you configure something, say an email, it doesn't ask you for some cryptic, weird stuff. It pretty much knows how to configure with the ISP and so on. Not necessarily the same here in the Android stuff. Another problem with the Android operating system, it's interface. The interface has improved over time, but Android is dreadfully difficult to use for a lot of people. And that's because of the use of too many types of menus that are complicated. And people, you see these little dots here on the upper right where you can have all sorts of other things and apps and so on. There's kind of not a real reflex of doing so. So Android is a little more difficult to use than the iPad iOS. But once you've learned how to use it, pretty good. In general, works well, does pretty much the job you want. What you got to be careful is not to buy a crappy device, because a crappy device will be slow and not super interesting, and you might not have a good experience, and you'll find that the tablet is not super cool to use. But Android is an option, and I think it's a very interesting option. And I really like, I've got an old Android tablet. I'm thinking of maybe buying a new one now, because I love the environment of Android. One of the problems, though, that would be left with Android is, compared to an iPad, most tablets don't have battery life. An iPad has 10, 12, 14 hours of battery life. The typical Android tablet might have 3 or 4 hours. Some really tweaked tablets I've seen with about 6 or 7, but a lot of them are barely more than 3 or 4 hours. That might be a problem if you're looking for something that has a long life, a long battery life, because you want to use it somewhere and you don't really have any place to charge. One last cool thing about Android, because it's an open system which you can do pretty much what you want, a lot of the tablets have optional stuff like SD card slots. They're often going to have mini USB where you can even plug in a USB key on it. Generally speaking, a keyboard like this one, you just put the USB dongle in the port or with an adapter, because often this mini USB, and this keyboard will work fine in the Android device because it's pretty much compatible with everything. So it has some added bonuses, and it's worth it to check the different tablets. And I would say, if you think an iPad's too expensive, Android is the pretty good alternative. And I'd say that from $200 to $350, so $200 to $350, you'll have some great tablets, less expensive than iPads. They're going to work just fantastically well. Then what do we have? We have the Amazon Kindle, Kindle Fire HD, Kindle Fires. I'm mentioning them not because of that much of usability, because they operate on their own little system from Amazon. They are oriented, of course, towards the Amazon products and services. But one of the interesting things about these is that the Kindle Fire HD is often discounted at such a low price that anybody that doesn't have a lot of money to buy a tablet can buy one of those. It has its own proprietary operating system inside. It has apps through the Amazon store. The problem with this is that very often most of the Kindle Fires I've seen are slow. So it's not super cool as a tablet for that. And the other problem that it might have is the App Store of Amazon is rather crappy compared to Androids and the iOS App Store for iPads. So they're a nice cheap option if you want to read books. That could be a nice option because it is linked to the Amazon store, which has one of the world's biggest book choices available. So for that, it could be interesting, and it's not too expensive. But of course, if you have to buy a tablet, you're thinking of tablet, I would probably go towards the iPad or Android tablet much more than I would such a device as the Kindle Fire. But it's there because it's popular, because they've been discounting them so low price. I've seen them at 39 bucks, 49 bucks. That's a pretty amazing price for a little device like this. E-readers. These are tablets too, and they have one functionality. E-readers are not there for apps or games or stuff like that. That's not why they were meant to be. So you might ask yourself, why do they exist? Why do you have black and white e-readers? Here's the tip. An iPad or an Android tablet or a Kindle Fire tablet relies on a technology which is screen is being illuminated by LEDs or LEDs, like this TV. So it adds a brightness. It's like looking at something that sends light at you. And it's a bit like looking at a light that's low level. And the problem is a lot of people have the difficulty of reading on an iPad. They tend to have headaches. They tend to not like reading because they find it's like reading on a computer screen. And often people that don't like reading on computer screen won't like reading on an iPad because it's not really cool. So you've got e-readers to the rescue. These are made to read. And they have a special technology which is very often what's called e-ink. E-ink is a kind of a sort of liquid crystal, and it actually mimics reading a book, white page, black ink. And most of them don't have a backlight issue. They're not backlighted. So basically, it's really like reading a book, and you'll often need to be in light to read on an e-reader. But because they mimic so well a book, people that don't like reading on computer screens usually like those because they don't give you headaches and they actually don't, it's really like reading a book. And because they have memory, well, you can have dozens of books in your e-reader instead of having, dozens of bricks of Stephen King in your bag, for example. And so this is cool for that. And the e-readers are a popular option for a lot of people that want to read books. The other very amazing option of an e-reader is that because it's not powerful, because it's not a machine that's running of thousands of apps, because it's not a machine that has light on the display and all of that, the e-reader usually has a battery life of days and even weeks before you need to charge them. So they are cool for that because if you're going on vacation for 2 weeks You can bring an e-reader with your favorite books and read for the length of your vacation without even, being scared that you might run out of batteries. Why? Because they use the regular liquid crystal display type, and that doesn't take a lot of energy to actually display. They are also very interesting because of iPads and Android tablets and Kindle Fires have one big flaw. They are illuminated to show you what's on the screen. When you get outside where it's bright or in direct sunlight or in an environment inside where there's a lot of lighting, it's a little difficult sometimes to see the screen. If you're outside in the sun with your iPad, you're going to see it's kind of hard to really read something. An e-reader, because it mimics a book, is amazing outside. You can go outside, to your favorite park on a sunny day, read your favorite book, take it easy, take it relax. That's cool for that. So e-readers are amazing in their own little market. That's the cool thing about e-readers, is that for reading, that's probably the #1 choice for a lot of people. Now, e-readers have one flaw that is sometimes very complex. They are, so here you see Sony e-readers, because they're quite popular, by the way, Sony e-readers. The problem is that very often you have to go to stores in an unusual way to get books on your e-reader, and it's damn complex from time to time. If you're on an iPad, it's easy to get a book through the store on an iPad. It's quite easy to get a book through the store on an Android device. It's and the Kindle Fire, well, you got big choice at Amazon. Here you rely on buying books of different other companies. So for example, I'd get an e-reader. I might want to get books from Amazon. I might want to get books from a local store that has an online book store. Problem is, it's a little complex because the books have digital rights managements. Most books, so that you don't steal the books, have protection, and it's really complex. And I can tell you, with e-readers, I've had a lot of issues where I had to help clients with their e-readers because they lost the rights to read their books for some reason, because they did something they didn't know you shouldn't have to do, or you shouldn't have done, and they lose the book, and it's kind of complex, and it's kind of really annoying. That's the real negative side of these readers. And Sony and all the companies that make those in general have a problem, major problems, that their stores are rather crappy and have no choice. And so it makes it a little harder to use an e-reader in general. But they're amazing. Once you got them working, once you know how to get your books, battery life, and also the fact that it mimics a real book, it's an amazing thing to check out. One option that is not very popular, but it's there, Windows tablets. And the reason why I want to talk about Windows tablets is because they add one thing that's very, very, very unique. So for example, I've got one here, which is a very cheap $100 Windows tablet that I've purchased, and I'm actually really happy with it. So this is a Windows 10 Windows tablet. It is amazingly good. It works very well. Whatever you want to go and check out, this works fantastically well. So here's Google and the Microsoft Edge. Why I mentioned those is because of the added flexibility of this being not only a nice tablet, because it has front and back cameras and everything. It's also the fact that this is a PC. This is a Windows machine that you can install all your favorite software on it. And it adds that feature to a tablet, and that's pretty cool. If you have a Windows PC, if you're thinking, I'd like to have a tablet that will let me do what I want to do on my PC, Windows tablets are pretty cool for that, and there's different price points. Windows tablets are, you have these cheap ones. This one is $100. This came, by the way, this is a Digital 2 tablet, and this came with Windows 8. So I don't know if you see the Digital 2. So this came with Windows 8. I'm the tech guy, so of course I upgraded to Windows 10 on it, but you can keep it at Windows 8. It gives you the flexibility of a tablet. You bring it along with you wherever you want. It does suffer slightly from battery problems because it's, a Windows tablet. A lot of Windows tablets have that problem, like laptops a little bit. So this one is typically 4 hour. I get 4 hours of use. If I don't use it too heavily, meaning I won't have 4 hours if I look YouTube videos, but if I just surf the web, check email, stuff like that, I do get about 4 hours of battery. And it gives me the added bonus of doing what I want. It is flexible because it has all the general ports of every other device. So basically, I've got a USB out. I even have an HDMI out that I can output to the TV if I want here. It has, my earphone jack, everything. And because it's a Windows tablet, basically you do whatever you want like you do on a PC. It has, of course, because of Windows 8 and Windows 10, the Microsoft Windows Store. It has the possibility that you just go to a website, download the program, and install it, and you've got that program running. Now, the different price points, once again, it's a little bit like Android devices. Price point is power. So the more expensive your tablet, the more powerful it will be, the better screen you'll have, the of course, more options you'll have on it of all the things that you want. Storage will be bigger, like a lot of other tablets, and we'll talk about these things, including storage, a little later. So, that's an option to think for, and of course, price point goes to very high. You can buy a Surface Pro tablet if you want. These typically, close to $1,000, and they're really nice devices. So they have touch screens. Like pretty much all the devices have touch screens because it's easy to use, and because they're Windows, you do what you want, and that's I think an option to check for. I do enjoy having my Windows tablet. I would say that if I had a choice of only one tablet to buy, in my case, only one, and I have $300 or $400, I'd probably get a $300 or $400 Windows tablet as my main tablet rather than buying an iPad or anything else. And that's my personal option because I know that I can do what I want. And that's the tech guy in my heart. I'm the enthusiast that likes to do a lot of stuff. So that's, another option to think for, and not too heavy. Pretty nice little devices here to purchase, basically. And, like this one's $100. So if you think that you can have a Windows PC for $100 in your hands, pretty amazing when you think about it today. One of the things that you need to check out on a device is storage. So here's an example of Android storage space, and saying here storage space is running out. That's a major problem of any tablet buyer. One of the things that you got to know is that on every type of device I'll buy, the system takes part of the memory that's in the device. So people will think, oh, I can get a 16 gigabyte iPad. Yeah, but you've got 11 gigabytes available, not 16. And you might say, well, I'm not doing that much with it. 11 gigabytes should be enough. Yeah, until you download that super cool app that you like, or that super nice game that you like, and that takes hundreds of megabytes. And even some apps and some games take gigabytes. So that's something to think about. Once you've made your idea that I want an iPad or an Android tablet or a Windows tablet, you got to think storage. How much space do I need? What will I be doing with it? Will I take pictures all the time? Will I take videos? Will I want to have hundreds of apps and games in it? You might not think so first, but you got to think again. I personally think you should never buy the minimum tablets. And a great example is this tablet. Told you, $100 for a Windows tablet. This has 16 gigabyte of storage. 16 gigs is very low. And just installing Windows and a few apps, and you're like, okay, I have 3 gigs left. And by the way, every 3 months, it's telling me, hey, there's no more space on your tablet. But it has the added bonus of an SD card. So I've shoved a 64 gigabyte SD card here, and I can transfer stuff on that. So that could be an option. You could buy a device that's minimum memory, but if it has an SD card on it, you know that eventually you can add an SD card to add storage. But remember that SD cards are much slower than the internal storage that's already in here. And remember that an iPad does not have that option. So don't buy the minimum. I would say that for most people, I would start thinking of a device at 32 gigabytes or more. So buy a 32 or a 64. And you know what? There's good chances that you'll never run out of RAM, especially at 64. Would you buy more than that? You know, there's the iPad Pro at 128 gigabytes. I'm not sure. 128 gigabytes is kind of a lot. Then again, it depends on your usage. Will you put music on there? Pictures? What will you be doing with that device? It's surprising. If you go away for a while and you want to have everything in it, you know, some of my clients, what they do is they want to download movies in it, because when they're in the plane or when they're far away, they can watch their movies that they stored in the device. So that's something that you need to think about. What do you want to do with your device? So don't buy the lowest memory device. Buy something a little bigger. I would stay away from 8 and 16 gigabytes. Oh, that's for sure. 32, 64. My iPad 2 is a 32 gigabyte. And I have lots of apps in it. And I still have at least 7 or 8 gigabytes free, because it starts to get a lot, you know. A lot of these apps are not that big also. That's something to think about. But don't buy the lowest. I think that's a bad idea if you buy the lowest storage in a tablet. It's really, really something that's going to, you know, draw you back. And then you're going to say, okay, I'm going to need to take stuff and put it somewhere else. I need to transfer some music or transfer some of the pictures and put them in another place because I don't have space here. You don't want to have to deal with that in general. So, you know, buy something with at least 32, 64 gigabytes. It's kind of optimal on a tablet. But don't be cheap on the storage, because it's going to catch you later. You're going to really look at it and say, yeah, okay, I don't have a lot of space. And the guy was right. Expansion ports. Tablets have different expansion ports and different ways of connecting. So typically, most tablets are Wi-Fi ready. So that's the first thing. You want to have the internet, your email, you want to have access to the web. Most tablets have Wi-Fi. But there's an added thing that a lot of tablets have, possibility to put a SIM card. And if you put a SIM card, well, you can go on the internet through a cell carrier. So you can call a company, and it's your cell phone company, for example, and say, hey, I'm gonna have a tablet. Can I have a SIM card and have my tablet on the internet? You can go on the internet pretty much everywhere with that. So that's the difference. Having a SIM card possibility, maybe for some people could be something that's very useful. So you might want to check that. iPads have the possibility. You can go and buy an iPad Wi-Fi only, but you can buy an iPad with carrier, and you'll have the possibility to use the internet everywhere. But be careful with that, because if you've got a smartphone, like I have this iPhone, you can actually share very often through your phone on your device. And that's why I never buy devices or tablets with the possibility to put a SIM card because I know that I'll use my phone to share the internet. And this becomes kind of a Wi-Fi center that I can connect all my devices through. So if you have that possibility, don't overspend on having the possibility to have a SIM card in your tablet. Other expansion, SD card. Now, if you're on an iPad, forget it. iPads don't have SD card slots. They never have. I don't think they will ever will. The reason is they probably are scared of having their apps stolen. But Android devices and most devices that I've seen have SD slot. This means you can add storage if you're out of place on your device. So for example, even my cheap Windows tablet has a 64 gigabyte SD card in it. And that's the cool thing about this, is that it helps you store stuff. So if you have movies and a lot of pictures, a lot of music. Also, what's cool about an SD is that since a lot of laptops have SD card readers, you can put the card in your laptop, put whatever you want on it, put it back in the device. Now your device has all that stuff on it. So that's also something really, really cool about devices. So why not just check out, do I have the possibility to expand my device with a memory card? What else that you could check is, does it have USB? Can I plug a USB thumb drive? Can I buy or plug a keyboard on it? Most devices will accept a keyboard. But what's cool is that with Android devices, for example, often you can plug in a very standard PC keyboard and it's going to work. An iPad or a device like this, maybe check for another option called Bluetooth. Not all tablets have Bluetooth on them. What's cool with Bluetooth is that, for example, my Windows tablet once again has Bluetooth. Bluetooth is for small devices, small wireless devices. So why not check it out? Can I can I use a Bluetooth mouse or a Bluetooth keyboard on the device? Meaning that it's wireless and it's going to work with your device. So Bluetooth is something that could be useful if you want. Bluetooth will add lots of capabilities to your devices. So there's a lot of little things to check for. Check the sound quality. A lot of tablets have crappy sound quality. This one, the Windows tablet I have here, is pretty surprising. It's got stereo speakers at the bottom. These are the two little stereo speakers, and it's pretty surprising when you think about it. Sound is not too bad. Of course, earphones are much better. But that's another possibility. Check out what type of sound does it have on its own. You don't always have earbuds or earphones to listen. So does it have strong sound? Try to use it. The best thing to do if you buy a tablet is to use it in the store. Don't just look at it. Use it. Listen to something. Go check out a video online. Move around in the different menus. Check how fast it responds when you actually press. That's very important. You'll see that some of them are so sluggish that the pressing is, and the moving of apps and opening of apps, closing of apps is actually pretty crappy. So you got to be careful with that. Screen size, that's another thing that you have to check for. Screen size is important, and it depends on what you want to do. So the thing is, what type of portability do you want? Are you going to take that tablet, put it in your purse, or you want something small because it's easy to, I like that the size of my Windows tablet, which is 8-inch, because in the winter, in my winter jacket, I can actually put it in my pocket. And I've got my tablet with me in my pocket. So that's something to check for. Big tablets are bigger to bring along somewhere and not as easy to dissimulate or not as easy to put away once you don't want to use them anymore. They're also heavier. The bigger the screen, the heavier the device in general. These are all little things you need to check for. What's the right size that you want? Are you going to read on it? A small screen device is not as fun to read on than a big screen device. That's also something to think about. Are you going to watch movies? Might be fun to watch movies on a 10-inch instead of 8 or 7-inch. Depends on what you want to do. Of course, the screen quality also. Use it once again in the store. Look at the screen, look at the different apps, look at pictures. Do they look right? Do they look pretty cool? Is the resolution nice? There's a lot of differences, and especially, once again, the price point will give you a lot of differences in quality of the screen that you have. Multi-touch capability. Some have 1, 2, 3. Often you'll see 3-point, 4-point multi-touch. That means you can actually press 4 fingers and have gestures of all sorts. So these are things to check for. Are you going to take your tablet with you and take pictures or videos? Check out the quality of the camera. Is there a front and a back facing camera? This has a front and a back facing camera. These are all things to check for because you might want to take pictures or videos with your device. Now, iPads, pretty much the winner there because they're really good for videos and pictures. Not the best, you know. The click and shoot digital camera is still a winner in the market of taking pictures. But the phones and the tablets are coming close real fast. Eventually, it's going to be pretty much the same. But if you're going to take pictures with your device, camera, what type of camera? How many megapixels is the camera? Is the front camera and is there a front and rear facing camera? Can you make selfies easily? Is it easy to use? And are the picture quality, are they good or not? You have to check these little things. These are all the little details. Some have crappy pictures. For example, this $100 Windows tablet has pretty crappy pictures, but I pretty much knew that that would probably be the case, and I don't really use this anyways as a picture. If I want to take pictures, I use my smartphone, my iPhone 5. So resolution, of course, the higher resolution you have on a screen, the clearer and the more precise everything is on that screen. With a limit, there's a limit where our eyes, you know, like for example, the retina display on the iPads, there's way too much dots per inch that your eyes can really see. But, you know, it's a selling point. Same with tablets here. The resolution often will go with screen size, and the better the screen resolution, the better it will be. Check out the brightness also. They're not all equal. Some are better at brightness of the screen, what it looks like. Is it beautiful? Are the colors beautiful? Check it out. You know, there's a lot of cheap stuff available. If you go to an electronics store that's selling all sorts of weird stuff, you might wonder that there's a lot of weird cheap tablets there. So that's something to check for. And the power inside your device. You know what? Like I told you, if you're buying an iPad, it's not much of a problem. It's not something you should check for. If you're buying anything else, what's the power of your device? Now, one thing that you have to be careful, you know, they're using all these, oh, this is a Cortex A15. It has 4 cores. It has, don't look at that too much. You know what? That's kind of a lot of stuff that they say that they throw at you. It doesn't mean that much, actually. It doesn't mean anything. The best way to find out if a tablet is powerful is how much, you know, use it in the store once again. It's difficult to buy a tablet online if you don't already know what it is like. You know, if you go on eBay, there are tons of tablets that you'll check that are from China. Problem is, you can't try them. And once you get it, it's kind of complex to bring it back there. So it's not necessarily the best market or the best way to buy such a device. But in store, you can try it out. And you know what? Who cares about the numbers and the processor in here? Try it out. Play games. Is everything fluid? Is everything going well? Is everything working exactly as you want at the speed you want? That's important. Usually we'll go with the price. The more expensive you'll buy your device, the more it's going to react rapidly to what you do, the more powerful it's going to be. Of course, it's going to be one of the great devices probably that you'll enjoy using. So be careful with that. It's not always really, really cool. And of course, the App Store is an important part of every device. If you use a device, make sure it has the real App Store. If you're on an iPad, it's not a problem. You get to the App Store from Apple, you get everything you want. Unfortunately, on the App Store, a lot or most of the devices have what we have called the Google Play Store, and you want to have the Google Play Store because that's where the good stuff is. Unfortunately, some devices have their own store that usually is rather crappy compared to the store that you have, like the Google Play Store. So that you're going to be very, very careful with that also. Make sure if you have an Android device that you are connecting to the Google Play Store. That will ensure that you have a good choice of apps and games. And of course, if you're on cheap tablets that are running weird operating systems or weird configurations, might not be a good idea if you want to have a good choice in apps. Once again, the Windows tablet, what's cool is that since it's a computer, it's like a PC in a tablet form. You can run pretty much everything you want. Of course, price point, the power, how powerful is this tablet compared to any other tablet. So that's pretty much our discussion today on tablets, iPads, Android tablets, e-readers. I've told you the good points and the bad points of pretty much everything that we've seen. So maybe in your head, you're thinking, well, okay, I want to read books. Maybe a tablet isn't what I want. Maybe an iPad's not what I want. Maybe it's an e-reader that I want because I don't want to play games or apps. I just want to read books. Well, you've maybe answered that an e-reader is better to have. Or you want to read books with an added bonus. Read books with the possibility of playing games, possibility of installing apps of all sorts. So, you know, that's all the stuff that you can check for. And it's very important to, you know, just be careful. Try it out and check it out. One of the things I always say to my clients, I don't know if I want to buy an Android tablet or an iPad. I always say, why don't you go to a store that has both? Try out the iPad, check it out, play with the apps, check out your Android tablet, make yourself, you know, make your own mind with your own usage of what you've seen by yourself. And remember, in terms of being easy, the iPad is kind of the winner. Android is a little more complicated, but an open system where you can do a lot of stuff. And even Windows tablets are very interesting. And if you have a PC, a Windows tablet runs the same way. It's just that it's a touch device, but it runs pretty much the same way. So it might be interesting for you because you're like, okay, I got a PC with Windows 8 or 10. I'll get a tablet with Windows 10 or 8. And I know it works already. These are all possibilities also. So this was Learn the Tech, show number 5 for February the 16th, 2016. I hope you enjoyed. I was scared for a while. I looked at the 5 here, and I thought I said 2015 here. And I was like, whoa, whoa, whoa. So hope you enjoyed the show. Remember, this show is dictated by you. I only talk about stuff that you want me to talk about. Next week, we're going to talk about backup. You know why? Because you're all doing it wrong. And most of you don't know how to really do a backup, what it means to back up, and we'll take a look at all the ways you can back up stuff with your PCs, your computers, your tablets. And I hope you're going to enjoy. So next week, computer backup. It's important. Stop putting it off because you don't want to do it right now. A lot of clients of mine, and I can tell you a lot of clients of mine, I've seen cry because they've lost everything. So hope to see you next week. We are on 6 p.m. Eastern, 2300 hours UTC, every Tuesdays. Take care, everyone. Hope you enjoyed the show. See you next week. Or learn the tech. Bye-bye.